Hello everyone, welcome to the second video of my beginner's DDLC modding tutorial. Today we are going to learn how to create a script, show backgrounds, show the characters and make them talk. This is 90% of pretty much any mod's script, so this should get you pretty close to get your mod up and running. So let's get started. Before we actually jump into the mod, I want to talk to you about a programming concept called indentation. This is important because RenPy is based on Python, and in Python indentation is mandatory. As a concept, indentation is pretty simple. It's simply the amount of white space to the left of a line. So for example, this line here has 0 spaces of indentation. It says 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces of indentation, etc. Now, to make this easier, you want to make sure that in Visual Studio Code, here where it says select indentation, you make sure it's indent using spaces and 4. This makes it so if you press tab, instead of putting in an actual tab, it's going to put 4 spaces. So it makes it easier for you to indent stuff correctly, especially because Visual Studio Code helps you indent things by making them all the same size. Now, why does indentation matter in Python? Now, I think this is easier to explain with an example. I don't want you to worry about the actual code now. I'm going to go over it, the basics, when we get to the next episode, when we get to variables and how we can use it in RenPy, but for now let's just focus on the indentation itself. Now let's say I have this code, print 1 if 1 equals 2, print 2 and print 3. If I run this code, I'm going to notice that it only printed 1 and 3. So you can see that print and if are indented the same amount. They're both at level 0, let's say. But this line 6 print 2 is indented at level 1, which is 4 spaces. The if statement only runs what's inside it if this here is true. Obviously 1 is not equals 2, so this line is not going to run because it's inside this if block. You can see that print 3 is already a line at level 0, so it's no longer inside this if, and it's going to be allowed to run and printing 3. Now you don't need to worry about this, like I said, but what's important is that you understand that whatever is further with more indentation is inside the thing that precedes it. Okay, now let's get to the mod. Let's open RenPy. And how are we going to get to our code? You can go to the projects folder manually, or you can come here to your tutorial, your mod, and click game in open directory. This is automatically going to open a folder inside your project that holds all your RPY files. Now, to open it in Visual Studio Code, the easiest way is to right click on the folder outside of the files. And if you're in Windows 11, you're going to have to click show me your options. If you're in Windows 10, it's going to automatically appear this. And you want to click in open with code. This opens the entire folder in this Explorer. It shows all the files in that folder, so it's easier to jump from file to file as you need it, and this is the easiest way to do it. Okay, let's launch our mod now. You're going to see in the main menu there's already a couple things that we can customize. The first one will be the name of the window here and your mod name here on the bottom right alongside its version. So let's close this and let's go to the file options.rpy. You can see here in the beginning of the file define config.name. This changes the name of your mod, and it's going to change both the name of the window and the name at the bottom right. So let's change it, for example, to DDLC tutorial. And here you can find the version of the mod. Let's say 0.1 because it's just started. And if you launch the mod again, you can see that it changed here and it will have changed here as well. If you don't want this to appear at all, you can change this GUI.change name to false with F capital F, and you can see that it's not going to show up at all. As you can see. Two other things that you want to change is this build name. This is going to take effect more in the background, but as it says above, keep it simple, don't use any special characters or the compiler will complain. For example, don't use spaces, don't use semicolons or colons, just keep it to letters and numbers. It says here no numbers, but you can use numbers. And you want to change the save config.save directory. This changes the folder where the save games of your mod live. Change it to, again, a simple name because this is going to create a folder and you don't want to make it too complicated or Windows or Linux or macOS might complain. One thing that you're going to notice now that we change this is that the game is going to completely reset. Why? Let's see open app data. This is where the save games live inside app data. RenPy, I'm sorry, I'm blind. You can see that before we were saving into DDLC mod template 2, but now that we changed the save game, it searched for the save file inside DDLC tutorial. Because it didn't find anything, it's prompting us to do the startup again. I can accept it. It's going to tell me about the let's play because I'm recording. And we can see it's working normally again. Now, one thing that you might have noticed is that every time I make a change, I need to close and reopen the game. This gets kinda tiring and in the long run costs you a lot of time. One thing we can do to help with this is going to definitions, definitions.rpy, and change this define config.developer to true to turn on developer mode. Developer mode has some features to help you debug the game, but most importantly it has something called AutoReload. You can turn on AutoReload by opening the mod, and once it's loaded, clicking Shift plus RR. And see that it's going to say AutoReload here in the window. And what does this actually do? What this does is every time you do a change and save the file, the game will automatically reload without you having to do anything. So for example, if we go to options.rpy, change this to true, and change this to DDLC tutorial 2, as soon as you save, it's going to automatically reload the game. As you can see, the change has happened. By the way, you can see that the file is not saved because there's a white circle next to the file name. That means it's not saved. If you Ctrl S, it's saved. And it's reloading again, as you can hear by the music. Okay, so now let's actually start with our script. Let's click New Game. It's going to ask us for our name. And it's saying that you're running the mod template with no story. Okay, let's fix that. I'm going to just turn on. Just going to turn off the music. And how are we going to fix it? First, let's create a new file. Here you can click outside to make sure you're on the outside folder. and click this little button here, new file. And let's call it story.rpy. You can call it anything you want, just something that makes sense to you. And we are going to create a label. What is a label? You can think of a label as a piece of script. Inside the label, we are going to put our script, and then we can call that label, which you are going to see in a moment, to play it. So for example, we are going to add a label called story. Again, you can name this anything you want. And we are going to put our script here. Now this is where the indentation is important. The script that we want to be inside this label has to be indented. So everything that is indented is going to be inside this label. You can create multiple labels. For example, you can create a label story 2 and put more script here. And these are now two separate labels. For example, if we have two different stories, we can at some point call label story and then at another point call label story 2. Okay, so what are we going to do with this label? We are going to use it in script.rpy. In script.rpy, we can find the label start. This is one of the very few labels that have a special meaning, meaning this name has a special meaning. The label start is the label that RenPy uses when you click new game inside the game. So when you click new game in your mod, this is what RenPy is going to play. So anything that you want to play has to come from here. This does some other things that are related to RenPy. You can see here commented the original RenPy calls. And what is a call? A call is a special word, as you can see here, for example, that makes you jump to a label. So, for example, we can remove this line as it says, because this line will stop us from starting the game. And we can now call story. What this is going to do is, as RenPy runs this code, as you get to here, it's going to jump, so to speak, to here, and it's going to run this code. At the end of the label, it's going to return here and continue if you have, for example, call story 2. So what is this going to do? We're going to call the story, go to label story, go through the script that is inside label story, and then it's going to come back here and go to call story 2 and so on. As you can see, you can have many calls. Okay, so let's actually code a story now. Let's see. First, how do we make a character talk? Text is done by putting it inside double quotes. So if we do this, hello there, and we run our game, click new game, it shows hello there. As you can see, if you put just text and nothing else, the narrator talks. Now let's turn on AutoReload, so you can see that, for example, if I add some more text, hello there too, the game automatically reloads and the text comes back. Also, when you have developer mode on, you can scroll up on your mouse to go back in time or back in the text. So you can go back and forth to test your script. And you can see that, for example, if I change this 2 to a 3, the game auto-reloads, and when I go forward, the 3 appears. Okay, so how do we make the characters talk? We make the girls or the MC talk by putting their names before the text. Now it's not exactly their names. If you want to make the MC talk, you do MC space and whatever it says, I am the MC. And to make the girls talk, you use the first letter of their name. So for example, Sayori, you do an S, and I am Sayori, or Yuri, you will put a Y, I am Yuri. Save the file, you can see hello there, MC, we call him DDLC, I am the MC, and now question marks is talking. Well, that's the thing. This S represents the character itself and not the name. And if you remember in the original DDLC, at the beginning of the game, Sayori doesn't actually have the name on the first scene. In script.rpy, there's 4 lines that tells us what the name of the girls actually are. Don't worry about this $sign for now. I am going to explain this later in the Python focus section of the tutorial in another video. But for now, just change S name to Sayori, M name to Monica, N game to Natsuki, and Y name to Yuri. So now we can go back to the game, the script is going to reload, we can go back and forth, and the name didn't change. I did this on purpose to show you that AutoReload doesn't always work. There are, depending on where you are in the script, the AutoReload isn't going to refresh absolutely everything about the game. So if something weird is happening where you are changing something in the script and it's not changing in the actual game, you need to close the game and open it again. It doesn't happen very often, but as you can see here, it can happen. If we now go to new game and scroll through, you can see that Sayori has his name, and Yuri has her name too. And the game is going to end because there's nothing else. Now, another thing I want to tell you about the names is that you can change the names with these 4 lines at any point in the script. So, for example, if you copy this line and you do I am Sayori, and now I'm going to change her name to girl, and you make her speak again, I am girl, you can see that by going to new game, I am the MC, then Sayori talks, then oh, I didn't have AutoReload on, I'm sorry. Also, yes, you have to turn on AutoReload every time you open the game. So now if we go to new game, DLC, Sayori talks, her name changes, is now called girl, and then Yuri talks. So you can do this at any point in the script. Okay, so now we know how to make the characters talk, but they're talking in black or with a black background. So how do we show images? So let's start with backgrounds. There are 2 main ways to show things in RenPy. You have the show keyword and the scene keyword. We are going to show something, we are going to talk in a second. So what is the difference between these 2? The only difference is that if you use scene, everything that's on screen at the moment is going to be deleted, and then this something is going to be shown. If you use show, it's just going to put wherever you're showing the something over whatever is already there. So usually you use scene with a background, because when you change the background, you're usually changing places in the world of your mod, and you're probably going to delete everything that's there. So let's start with the background. Show, let's say show PG class day. Okay, and now if we auto reload the game and we click new game, the class day is going to appear. Okay, but what is BG class day? This is something that you just have to know the name of the things, and thankfully in the mega thread you can find here the posing and expression guide, which works as a sort of cheat sheet that tells you every name of the things. We are going over the characters in a moment, but here are the names of the backgrounds, of all the backgrounds in DDLC. As you can see in this code, when you are doing a background, you have to add BG, which stands for background, before it. If you do just class day, it's going to do this because it can't find it, so it just puts some text there. So when you're using a background from the game, you have to do scene BG class day, and it works. Okay, so how do we show the dough keys? To actually show the characters, we are going to do show the name of the character, this time in full, with all the lowercase letters, Sayori, and a number and letter that tells us which pose it is. Let's say, for example, 1A, which is a basic pose, and the game auto-reloaded and showed us Sayori. It's too big, I know, but we are going to fix that in a moment. If we go to our cheat sheet here, you can see a big list that shows us the faces and the poses. These are the poses, so basically it goes from 1 to 5, and for example for Sayori, 1 is the default, which is this one. 2 is going to be with the right arm raised, so if we change this, for example, to 2A, she is going to lift up her right arm. And so on. 3 is the left arm, 4 is both arms, and 5 is her special pose where she is tapping her fingers together. Below we have a big table with all the expressions. There is the faces. From 1 to 4 we have all these faces, from A to Z, and here we have the special faces that can only be used with a 5 pose. So these small tables can only be used when there's a 5 here. All the other poses from the big table can be used with 1 through 4. Okay, so for example, we can use 1 or 2K, for example, 2K. You will see that if you try to use, for example, 5K, it's going to give an error and use a default sprite when it can't find it. Okay, so this is how you use this code. The codes are the same if you use the casual clothes. You just add a B after the number, and in this case she's using her casual clothes. It's exactly the same codes, you just add a B after the number. Now, considering what I just said, there are a couple of special cases. If we go to this table, you can see that Yuri only has 4 poses, so her special turned away expressions work with 4 instead of 5. So for example, I can do Yuri for A. You can see that 4 is a special expression where she's turned away. Yuri also has a set of special expressions, her yandere expressions, that occur when she goes insane in the original game. To use them, you give a number from 1 to 3, which correspond to the poses of her body, and then you do Y and another number. The numbers correspond to these numbers, so you do Y1 through Y7, and you get her crazy expressions. Natsuki is also special because you can actually use her normal faces with all 5 poses. So only with Natsuki you can use, for example, 5a, and it will work. Natsuki actually has another set of special expressions, which are these crying expressions she has, that only work with the 1 and the 4 pose. So you want to do, if you want to use these ones, 1, 2, and the face that is shown here, A, B, through I. And you can see it does this, and it also works with 4. And it doesn't work with the other numbers, as you can see. Natsuki has a final 2 special poses, the scream and the vomit, that are used near the end of the game, and for this you just write Natsuki scream and Natsuki vomit if you want to use them for some reason. Okay, so how do we make her the correct size? This is actually a 2-in-1 thing. To place a character somewhere in the screen, you use the at word. It's literally show Sayori at this place. It's like an English sentence. Now, you can customize this to use specific pixels, and we can get into that later on another video. But for now, we want to use the default positions that DDLC comes with. So these positions are T and 2 numbers. The way I like to explain this is the T is the letter that you use, and then the first number is the number of characters that you have on screen. The second number is the position of the character on the screen. So basically, let's say we have 2 characters, Sayori and Yuri. We have 2 characters on screen. We are going to show Sayori at the first position, and we are going to show Yuri at 2 characters at the second position. And you can see that Sayori is on the left and Yuri is on the right. This goes all the way to 4 characters. If you want to use more than 5 characters on screen, you're going to have to do a custom position. So, for example, if we have 4 characters on screen, we have T41, T42, show Monica at T43, at 43, sorry, and Natsuki at T44. So Sayori, 4 characters, first position, Yuri, 4 characters, second position, Monica, third position, and Natsuki, 4th position. And you can see them in order. Now, if you want to, for example, change the pose of a character, let's say after Sayori says I am the MC, we want her to be happy, we can just do show again Sayori on A. If you don't put the at, it's just going to show at the same at that it was before, and don't worry, this isn't going to duplicate the sprite, because it sees that it's the same character and it just replaces it. So if we go through the text, you can see I am MC, and then it says I am Sayori. I forgot to put the B, so she changed clothes. Now, it's important to realize that the order of the show and the text matters. When you have a show, it will only update the images on the next text. So you can see that if we go back, it says I am the MC, and she's still on this one. This show, and you can tell if we use various shows. For example, we can make Yuri sad. These 2 shows are only going to happen on the next text, as you can see. And this is basically all that you need now. You can, for example, after this, change to the bedroom of the MC, show Sayori happy, and say something like, MC, welcome to my room. And you can see that it's just going to follow line by line by line by line. I am Sayori, I am girl, I am Yuri, and now the scene is going to happen, so it will change. I'm sorry, I forgot the at. And welcome to my room. If you want a character to get out of the scene, instead of show, you can use hide. So for example, let's have Yuri hide after Sayori talks the first time. So we can do hide Yuri, and if we go to the beginning of the script, you can see MC talks, Sayori talks one time, and then Yuri hides. The last thing you need to make a basic mod is of course music. To play music, you want to write play music and the name of the song. Once again, these names are in the cheat sheet near the bottom. There's a table here with the name that you need to put in the code and the song it corresponds to. You can see that T5, which I put in the code, corresponds to OK Everyone. And if I go back to the main menu, turn the music on, and play the new game, you can see that OK Everyone started playing. You can also stop the song. For example, when we hide Yuri, let's stop music. And you can see that when Yuri disappears, the music stops. And we can play a different song when we change scenes. For example, play T3. You can see that when we go to the new scene, the main theme plays. And that should be about it. This covers all the basics that you need to make your mod. In the next episode, we are going to cover transitions and special text tags that let us do bold text, italics text, and other things. Again, if you have any questions, the best place to put them is in the DDLC Discord, in the mod help channel. This is the fastest way, but if you don't have Discord, for example, you can put it in the comments of this video while I try to answer as fast as possible. And see you in the next episode.